All right. So, welcome, welcome to a very special episode of the People's Podcast. With us today, we have a very special guest, Ebonee Ragins. She is a certified wellness coach and visionary force behind Secari, a dynamic wellness brand on a mission to make self-care accessible and to help others through the cycles of healing, growing, and thriving. Ebonee holds a master's degree in developmental psychology from Teachers College at Columbia University. Ooh, fancy. And boasts over 10 years of leadership development experience. However, her journey goes beyond the accolades. It is rooted in a calling to assist others on their journeys of self-discovery and a profound purpose to empower individuals to lead lives they genuinely enjoy. As the proud owner of Secari, Ebonee has brought her passion to life. Her commitment to wellness led her to self-publish the Self-Care Rituals workbook and planner, which I have a copy and I can be a testament to, a practical tool designed to weave care and intention into our daily lives seamlessly. Her goal is to make self-care a priority that fits and to help others experience the transformative power of intentional living and well-being. Welcome to the podcast, the People's Podcast. Ebonee, how are you feeling?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel happy and honored to be here. I've known you a long time, and so it's nice to see another one of your wonderful dreams and aspirations really actualized. And I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you as always. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into it. On the self-care tip. Uh Tell us from your perspective, how do you define self-care and why is that important?
In its most general sense, self-care is the practice, excuse me, are the practices and rituals that you have that nurture who you are. Um, More recently, I would say self-care is like synonymous with either pampering or fitness, and that could be a part of it. But it isn't all of what it is. It is the little things and the big things. It is going to therapy, and it's also enjoying your morning coffee because that is your time to yourself, to really reflect on your day and get yourself together. It is how you take care of yourself in highs and in lows. And they're just your practices that you rely on to really nurture your well-being and help you to find your own center.
Within that, I think that it may be kind of evident, but just in case it's not evident, why is self-care important? Why is this an important practice to participate in?
Life is too long and too short to just kind of fumble through it, right? I think that whenever I talk to people about self-care and I ask them, do you do it? And the answers overwhelmingly are always, I think that it's important. I know that it's important, but I don't really have time for it. And if you really take a step back and realize, well, how are you getting through your day? Right? Like even in your most frustrated times, there are things that you do to keep you going minute by minute. Those things are self-care. We need that to keep moving forward. Whether you are filling your glass at the end of the day or throughout your life, or if you are running on E a lot of the times, you're doing things that get you fueled enough to keep going, and operating with a little bit more intention about what those things are allow you to tap into that so that you can mindfully keep going. So that
Got
was a
it.
long-winded way
No,
of
no, no.
saying it's important because you needed to keep going. You needed to really own your life. You need it for your stability. You need it for your well-being. You need it to be of service. You have to have care. As humans, we need to feel care. And that is in community, that's going to be externally, but then that's also going to come within yourself.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it almost sounds like we even whether consciously or unconsciously, we are participating in acts of self-care, things that recharge us, things that give us energy and help us get back grounded in life. But it sounds like what you're advocating is taking a more intentional approach with in terms of like maybe creating the time, creating the space, creating the activities that are a part of your self-care routine, and and just being more intentional about incorporating those things into your life. Is that kind of accurate?
Absolutely that. Yep, that's
Excellent.
spot
Excellent.
on.
So please enlighten us and tell us from your very, very wise perspective. What are your top 3 general tips for self-care, for health and wellness, and why? And why? Don't forget the why.
Mhm. Top 3 general tips. So for one, we begin with self-awareness. Self-awareness for me is the key difference between you living life and life living you.
Ooh, that was
Um,
good. That was nice right there.
and beginning there, knowing what you like, what you don't, knowing what makes you feel certain ways, what brings you childlike joy, what are your stressors, what are your triggers, what are the things that you can identify that help you feel grounded, understanding how to regulate your nervous system. All of those things fall under the umbrella of self-awareness, and how you show up in the world, and how you navigate within that space. Knowing how, one, two, knowing how to recharge, whatever that looks like for you. How do you fill up your glass? How do you foster energy, right? Like whether that is in solitude, whether that is being around people, if you are an extroverted person, knowing how you recharge is, you got to learn how to fill a battery if you want it to keep going. And then 3, being at peace, making peace with things, whether that is the practice of forgiveness, whether that is the practice of acceptance. These are things that feed into your overall enjoyment of your life, because you are able to kind of work through those blocks. I heard in an interview, Lauren London referenced another author, and I'm not sure the original author, of like going with the river instead of being stuck on the rocks.
Mm.
Um, Being in flow for me really comes with those things. And the why that is important is, again, because life is too long to be stuck on the rocks. And that's inevitable, right? There are going to be periods in your life, your learning, your growing pains, your things, and all of that, where you are continuing to grow. And it is so important that you know how to keep going, that you trust in your confidence and your abilities and your self-esteem, to really just get yourself to where you need to go and where you want to go.
That's really dope. Your third one, being at peace. I feel like that is, that's a lot right there. That's a mouthful. That's way, way easier said than done. If there's somebody out there and they are struggling to find their peace, I know you said the self-awareness and to recharge. But if I'm struggling with finding my peace or being at peace, and I find that that's a challenge to do on a consistent basis, what advice would you give around that?
If you're struggling to find your peace, I think it helps to identify what is what. So I do a meditation, where I call it Who's at the Table, and trying to get clear on what feelings you're having, what emotions you're having, and the connection between those things and the stimuli, right? What is causing so much stress and frustration? What is disrupting your peace and your joy? Defining what peace looks like. I think that is also incredibly important, because someone else's version of peace, of being on a mountaintop alone, serene, completely quiet, may not be the same as someone else's whose peace is happy family, stable financial stability, whatever that looks like, right? So being clear on what peace looks like for you and what are the disruptors.
Walk me through, and we can go into detail more on some of this stuff later. But walk me through a who's at the table meditation. Like, what does that look like for you?
So the who's at the table meditation, we get quiet, we clear our minds, we become completely present, and just, typical meditation, you are exactly where you are, um, acknowledging sensations, feelings of whatever you need to bring you completely present. And you visualize a table in your heart center, and you invite all of you there. It is that combined with a body scan, and what are the feelings that you are having? Are there any sensations? What is coming up for you? The beautiful thing about this meditation is that I've done it a few times, and different people visualize different tables. And I've heard people describe like complete spreads with flowers and chairs and all of these things. And, we're inviting all of your feelings, right? We're inviting every emotion. We're inviting joy. We're inviting pain. We're inviting anger. What do they look like? Where do they sit? How do you know when they're present? How do you identify them? Some people, it is completely in feeling, where they have a hard time visualizing that anger looks like however. And then there are other people that have a clear picture, or they picture a person. And it's such a fun meditation because it really gets curious about who these characters are. It reminds me of the movie Inside Out, where all the emotions have like,
That's a dope movie.
yeah, it's excellent movie. But it's like that, where if you were to invite them all to sit at a table, and you acknowledge their presence within you, within your heart, within your mind, your body, and you are able to release and let go who doesn't need to be there at the time, or if you're able to get inquisitive about who's there and who stays, it just takes such a more curious approach at understanding what you're going through and how you're feeling, and also accepting emotions that are a lot of times we kind of tuck away. So if we think about how we go through our daily life, if someone offends you, right, or if something happens at work, maybe anger comes up, maybe shame comes up, maybe anxiety and frustration. And in our continuation of having to get things done, we tuck those things away, right? And ideally, you get to a point where you invite them back, to just kind of work through whatever that experience was so they can go on about their business. But we all know bad things don't go away. Strong feelings don't go away. You tuck them away, but if you don't actually process them, then they can go elsewhere in the body, manifest themselves as aches and pains and migraines and frustrations. And so bringing them to the table says two things. One, I'm always going to accept my full self. Everybody's invited here. Everybody's welcomed here. Everybody's safe here. And two, I don't have to harbor anything.
Yeah.
So an emotion is just a reaction to a stimuli. One of the most helpful things that I've ever heard is that your brain is supposed to function like a computer, not a library, where, of course, there's going to be memory, right? Computers have memory, but a computer is a processing system, right? You're taking in information, you're deciding how to apply it, you're deciding where it goes, you're just can stay because it serves a purpose and what you need to let go of. And knowing that allowed me to like understand that everything is not supposed to just be tucked away in certain boxes. Those things spill over. And how important it is to just be connected with your emotional self, be connected to your sensitivity, be connected to your vulnerability, so that those things are not really guiding your life in a way that you are in the backseat. I often ask, either coaching clients, or I'll ask, like when I facilitate groups, who's driving the car, right? Because sometimes we could be sitting in the back seat with our head down, like tucked between our legs, because anxiety or depression or fear is like doing donuts on the highway. And we are just hiding in the back, hoping we just get there safely. Where when you are connected to your emotional self, when you are aware of the things that cause a reaction for you, the things that really activate you, the things that really discourage you, when you're aware of how you show up and how the world has an impact on who you are, you're driving the car. Those things can be in the car, right? Grief, lifelong, when grief is something that sticks with you forever, right? It can stay in the car. It just can't drive it.
Mm.
Um, Anger, people have a very unique relationship with anger because anger is so protective, right? Anger is how you get people away from you. None of it's bad. Anger is not bad. Shame's not bad. None of those things are bad, right? But fostering a healthy relationship with it means it can be in the car because I'm going to feel these things, but I'm always going to be behind the wheel. And so I decide where we're going. I decide I'm the one that's making sure I get there safely. And even if you have um, even if you have input, right? Because as we know, when we're having really big feelings, those voices in our head are telling us all kinds of things. Anger is saying, slash the tires. When sadness is saying, like, but I'm devastated. But what you're saying is, this is over and it's painful, right? And you being behind the car means that you continue to drive away versus anger that's going to drive you to go slash the tires. Um, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a roundabout way
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect
of
sense. One of the
explaining.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, that was just a roundabout way of explaining how the who's at the table meditation means that we call forth and identify as many emotions and feelings that we can so they don't catch us off guard, right? As we understand anger, I don't know if you've ever seen the anger iceberg,
No.
where anger is like a secondary emotion. So by the time you get to anger, it is because your hunger, your sadness, your grief, your pain, were all ignored,
Mm.
right? And by the time you get to anger, it is because you've reached your max with that. So how do we identify and be honest with ourselves about when it is hunger and it is sadness and it is sorrow and it is pain, and how do we sit with it long enough that we're able to say, okay, I learned what I felt like was important for me to take away from this sadness and this pain, and I can let you go now.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I don't know if it's a metaphor or an analogy or whatever, but the framework that you described, I like that. I remember one of the most powerful lessons I came across in spirituality was this idea of embracing and incorporating your dark side. So like, and so often it's like you might hear people talking like, you have to the dark your dark side is something to repel. It's something to people like try to disassociate with yourself. It's something that it's almost this thing that you want to try to stay away from and that you don't want to go into. You just want to be in your light. You just want to be in your light. And life doesn't work like that. Humans don't work like that. And a big part of becoming your full spiritual self and tapping into your full spiritual strength is you tap into your dark side and you fuse it with who you really are. And kind of like you were saying with the who's in the car example, you learn to control it. You learn to control it. You learn to incorporate it. And because it's always going to be a part of you, but it's like, are you controlling it or is it controlling you? Type of
Mhm.
deal. So that definitely really resonates. Tell me one thing. Earlier you mentioned body scan. Just real quick, can you go over what you mean when you say body scan?
Yes. So body scan being the practice, like the meditative practice of scanning your body for any sensations, right? When you think of something, what are the stimuli that causes a reaction? Where do you feel things? Where do you feel stiffness? Where do you feel pain? What is twitching? So a lot of times I will be in meditation and then like my leg will twitch or something like that. But it is going from scanning your entire body and bringing just awareness to what's happening internally. Do you feel tired? Is there stiffness somewhere? Is your heart racing? Are you feeling anxious? Are you having a hard time um, getting out of the rumination loop? And if so, where do you feel that? Um, and yeah, it's been helpful for me because I am somebody that carries stress with pain. So my neck will get stiff, my shoulders will get stiff. I'm definitely someone that carries stress right here. Um, and so going, that once my neck starts to like get stiff and stuff like that, I know that I need to like dial it back a little bit and figure out what is keeping me up. But then even going through and feeling like feeling what are my knees like and why is it that I have this random pain when I haven't fallen or bumped into anything. And I will pray, I will smoke cleanse, I will do Reiki, and then all of a sudden the pain is gone. And that lets me know that that was an accumulation of something that I was some stagnant energy that I was holding on, that was living in a place that I would have never expected. As someone who has had and experienced and felt anxiety for as long as I can remember, I've only associated like that experience with in my chest, racing heart, the most prominent like indicator that I'm feeling very anxious, but it has also looked like random aches and pains in different parts of my body, where you pull the thread on anxiety and there is shame or hurt, fear, embarrassment, whatever, whatever the experience is, that will hide itself in different places. And your body your body keeps a score is like the perfect title for that book because it is true.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, and maybe this is how due to how modern medical practices operate, or at least in the West, I should say, how medical practices operate. We underestimate the connection between the mind, emotions, and what happens in the body. It is all interconnected. It is all
Mhm.
interconnected, and it could something could be due to your diet, which is like a physical thing, or it could be a thought pattern that you have
Mhm.
that is manifesting itself, uh, and creating some kind of effect in the body. Um, so yeah, that's definitely key.
Mhm.
Um, okay, how would you say spirituality plays into self-care and other dimensions of wellness?
Mhm. So spiritual wellness, as one of the pillars of wellness, is the belief system that supports your sense of purpose. Um, when you can bring what you're doing back to center. Whenever I've done leadership development courses, we begin with the end in mind, right? And what do you see your life like? And purpose, um, and guidance is the key component for answering that question. And spirituality is so helpful because it allows you to trust in ways that you cannot see. Like there isn't a material thing that says, I'm going to be good. And by good, I don't mean like morally good, I mean taken care of. And having a sense of spiritual wellness, um, it very much means that you are aligned with your values and you're operating with a sense of personal ethics. And when you can do that, that allows you to have peace with your decisions. That allows you to be good, again, not morally, but feeling like you are living in your purpose, feeling like you can go to sleep at night, knowing that you've done what you can do. And when there's so much, everyone's on their own journey, right? And everyone has questions about life and has questions about things going on. And when you have a spiritual connection, and you are operating again within your own values, your own code of ethics, when you are operating with whatever purposes you feel is meant for you, that allows you to live in peace most consistently.
Mm.
Because the decisions that you make, ultimately our life is the decisions that we make, right? Life is a lot of what happens to you. Life is, I'm gonna, we can be honest, like there are certain that we did not decide to be in this political climate, right? Well, I know I didn't. um so that is not to say that there aren't external factors. We all are sharing this one planet. This is one major group project. And so we are also living within other people's decisions, right? But leaning into what you can control is ultimately what's going to shape your sense of peace and groundedness. And the things that you can control are the decisions that you make.
You are preaching it. You are preaching it. That was so good. This is one big group project. You're right, because it's like it's this balance between um you as an individual, you make 1,000 choices a day, maybe like 10,000, tens of thousands of choices every single day. You're making choices, and those help determine the course of your life and are largely responsible for the course of your life. However, you're also living on the planet with 8 billion other beings who also have that ability. So it's like
Mhm.
all of this is like interconnecting as one big group project. I love that. I love that. That's dope. And I'm probably going to steal that. I'm just letting you know. So if you hear that on a future podcast, don't be surprised. But I'll always give you credit. Always give you credit.
Well, listen, that wasn't an original thought. I saw that somewhere online like a dozen times. So
Got you.
it
Got you.
belongs to the world now.
It belongs to the group in the group project. That's dope. Okay. So if someone is new to being intentional around their self-care, what are some beginner practices that you would suggest?
In a very practical sense, understanding the baseline of your physical body, right? Where are you in your most basic uh standing, right? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? Do you physically feel good? And do you feel good most of the time, right? Like not one good day or, anything like that. How do you actually feel? And taking an assessment of what that is. Like I always encourage people, please get your blood work done. If you don't feel good most of the time, it's important to get curious as to why, right? Of course, there's again the basics: sleeping, diet, enough water. Are you consuming enough nutritional foods? And if you don't have that, are you supplementing in ways that are actually helpful to you? I know that social media can be really helpful in giving you information about so many things that are out there, but there's like thousands of vitamins and supplements, right? And if you spend any time on like any sort of biohacking sector of the internet, it'll have you taking 75 vitamins and minerals every single day, where that can, again, it's like time and money. I don't know if that's going to be the best thing, right? But getting guidance and advice from people who are skilled and credentialed to actually give you that information, right? So getting a baseline as to where you are physically, um, then also establishing where you are mentally. There are eight, I'm like, is it five or eight? There are 8 pillars of wellness, right? And so it's not just one thing. It's environmental, it's emotional, physical, intellectual, spiritual, social, occupational, and then financial. Exploring all of those pillars, right? Figuring out where you are in each of those pillars. And actually asking yourself, do you like your life? Do you like who you are? Do you like where you are? Where are we going on this journey? Some people are, not everybody wants to know to the millisecond, a planned out life with everything like that, because we all know you can plan everything, but then life is gonna life.
For sure.
And other people like to just go with the flow. There's nothing wrong with either of those extremes. But do you actually like your life? Do you actually like yourself? Do you like where you're going? And then getting curious with those answers. Journaling is such an easy access point to just exploring what that looks like. Unfortunately, we have a healthcare system that makes even blood work a really big pain for a lot of people. So documenting how you're feeling, especially if you're someone that menstruates, especially if you are going into your um, 30s, into your 40s, we are going through a hormonal change again, where you can feel completely different than you did in your 20s. Your hormones are fluctuating all the time. And so just getting curious as to what that looks like and documenting it. That way, when you get the opportunity to meet with a doctor, you could have your documentation to say, I don't really feel the best. Or I'm trying these kinds of things, like, I'm having a hard time sleeping, or hydration is really a challenge for me. Getting curious as to what that looks like for you, be it making sure you're getting enough hydration in your water, like, does your water have minerals in it? Or are you having a hard time because you work in a place where you're not really allowed to take breaks? And then applying tools that help you address those needs. Again, there are 8 pillars, right? So exploring each of those will give you kind of an answer as to where you have a deficit and where you're really, really thriving. Another practice that is incredibly helpful is understand. Here we go with another like visual. But we are always, operating with peaks and valleys, right? Peak is when you are feeling your absolute best, your green juice, running in the morning, getting your meditation in, connecting with all of your friends and family, everybody's vibing, all things are well, you love your new job, you're praying every day. Like, that's when you're at a peak. You have the most energy to try new things or to apply all of your self-care, right? When you are in the valley, you have just enough energy to keep going.
Mm.
And then there's the in between. In between means you're kind of in the middle. You're aware of if you're going higher or lower. And that to me is the cycle of healing, growing, and thriving, right? And we're always going to be on that cycle. And that understanding is important to self-care, because your care when you are in the valley is not going to look like the care when you are on a peak.
Mm.
And being honest with yourself about that means that you know what you need, right? So if you are in the valley and you think of being in the valley of having a broken bone, when you are at a peak, you're marathon ready, right? If you have a broken ankle, you are going to do nothing but nurse that ankle. You're going to use your
Mm.
like baby holding hands to be as gentle as you can. You're going to ice it. You're going to do what I'm not a nurse, so I don't know how you treat a broken ankle, but you're going to do whatever you need to do
Right.
to treat the wound.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be kind and patient and gentle because you understand you can't apply pressure to it until it heals. And as you work your way up to the mountain, work your way out of that valley, you're going to be able to apply more pressure. You're going to be able to move a little slower, walking, running, and then you're back up, and then you're able to be marathon ready again. But again, the care that you apply when you are in the valley, and that looks different for different people, right? The way that I like to conceptualize that, especially for working people, is that when you're in the valley, you hate your job. You hate it there. It is soul sucking. You do not like it. It takes you so much energy to get up and get out of bed in the morning to just get there. And you have just enough energy to not get fired. And that's it, right? You're not on no committees. You don't want to do any extra work. You're not even bringing nothing to the potluck. You are just doing enough to not get fired. You are in the valley. It is draining the energy out of you. There is going to eventually be an intervention, internally, externally, whatever, where you have enough energy to start applying to new jobs. Maybe you take a hobby over the weekend that fills your cup. Maybe you reconnect with a passion. Maybe you join a book club where you're curious about, there's more things going on for you, where you have a little bit more energy to engage, and then you work your way up. And the energy that you get from being around other professionals or people that are not related to your industry at all, you connect with your passion, and now you're writing more, and you're figuring out how to blog or whatever, right? You work your way back up to the mountain, right? And then you apply to a new job, you get it, best thing in the world. Now you're at a peak. That's where you have the most energy. You're the first one in the office because it's new and you love it and it's something more aligned with you. And you have all the energy in the world. So you're getting up, you're running so that you can work longer, and you're connecting with people, and you have the energy to network, and you're flourishing, right? And things are going to happen, big change in the company. Maybe you get bored with it. Maybe you have a new passion, and then it works, and then you're cycling again. Ideally, you don't hate it before you have to change each time. And it doesn't mean that you have to drop from a peak to a valley to keep going, but it's going to fluctuate. And knowing how to apply care, again, with intention, means that you can identify where you are, what you're experiencing, and what are the things that actually help you when you're in that place.
Got you. Got you. I like the visuals. It's actually very helpful.
I'm a visual learner.
I
It
like
can
it.
either be very colorful for people where they're like, where is she going with this? Where the car, where the mountain. Um,
I like it though. I like it though. It's good. So last thing, you, Ebony, what are some of your self-care practices that you personally engage in? And then tell us a little bit about your fabulous journal. We would love to hear about that. So yeah.
So my favorite self-care practices, I love to start my morning positive. So that means getting up slowly. Getting up with a loud alarm, no, she's got to go. That getting up with like a jolt of anxiety, which is what it feels like for me. Like those loud blaring alarms in the morning, they don't do it for me. I have like alarm that makes like a tweeting noise, like it sounds like nature sounds. Um, and so getting up quietly and then consuming positive information. So I like watching videos with thought leaders in the wellness space. I like listening to meditations or listening to really quiet and easy to listen to music. So binaural beats and journaling and just moving slowly. I've stopped drinking caffeine in the morning, so I enjoy the taste of coffee, but I've switched to either a dandelion tea or decaf. And I have found that that has helped me manage my anxiety. And then just being curious about different wellness practices for me. And that is a rotating thing. Talk therapy, medication. I have ADHD. And my symptoms become more pronounced when I am stressed. And being on, I take Wellbutrin. I don't know if anybody else there takes Wellbutrin, but she's amazing. It's a very versatile drug that's used for many, many things. But taking a low dose of that helps me to manage my stress enough that I can keep my head above water. So then I can kind of sort through things. And then just being curious. I shifting from panic mode and being really critical and very judgmental and freaking out about things, applying these practices of just being mindful, reflecting, using the things that I have to help me just manage my nervous system allows me to go about my day and my life in ways that I don't feel like I am struggling. There was an interview that Usher did, I believe it was on the Angie Martinez podcast, where he said, he asked, when you're going through something, are you suffering or not? And if you're suffering, then obviously there's something to address. But if you are not suffering, just keep going. And that, I don't like absolutes, I definitely am in the gray area. But that was such a simple way of like understanding when things feel overwhelming and really big. Is this suffering? Like, am I actually suffering? And sometimes the answer was yes. And then when it was yes, I just apply again. What do we do when we're in the valley? We apply the care that we need when we're in the valley, calling in professionals, seeking help, being gentle, being kind, being patient, just accepting. Y'all are getting 2% out of me, and I'm just doing enough to not get fired. And that's enough. Accepting that that's enough. And whatever practices that I applied then when I was suffering, I did that. And then it was time to move on. That's when we do a little bit more. And then all of a sudden I'm journaling and meditation and prayer. I'm able to get up at 5 a.m. to do all of these things. And so yeah, that again, very long-winded way of saying having a really mindful morning, starting my day really positively, and really consuming a lot of positive content. On social media, I'm definitely somebody that's chronically online. I find it to be really interesting and a way to connect with information that I would otherwise not necessarily have the access to in such succinct ways. But editing my algorithm and timeline so that it is curated, that I'm following people that are giving useful information, following experts, and not just people who healed themselves with whatever protocols that they have, but following people who are trained and credentialed enough to give scientific context for things, right? And then also just things that are funny and lighthearted. So I don't have a negative experience when I go online. In fact, I have a practice if I'm scrolling and I have any sort of like ting, if I'm being judgmental, if I look at somebody and I'm like, get a negative thought about them, I unfollow or I mute them. They don't need that from me, and I don't need that kind of a feeling. Um, it's something to get curious about, right? Because you're like, why do you have such an attitude about this person that you either haven't seen in forever or that you don't know? And then that's like a point of exploration for me. But it's also a quick way for me to make sure that the media that I consume is not upsetting or putting me in a space where I'm just like not a great person.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of great points. Two of which really are standing out are the internet and social media is both a gift and a curse. I'm old enough to remember before the internet, and
Yeah.
you know, having to research for information, or if you wanted to know certain things, you had to go look it up. You had to go to the library. You had to go consult an expert. It wasn't just at the tip of your fingers.
Mhm.
But nowadays, any question that you have, anything that you want information on, you literally have all the answers at the at your fingertips, and you can get all that information, good and bad, good, bad, and ugly. So there's great
Mhm.
information out there that is going to help us, develop personally, and then there's also bad information and misinformation and disinformation and just inaccurate information and just all the above, all the above. So
Right.
that those skills of discernment definitely come in handy. But it is definitely like just the amount of information that we encounter or interact with on a daily basis and have the ability to interact with on a daily basis in 2023 is just astounding. The other thing
Mhm.
you said though is the morning routine. I'm very, very big on morning routines. I feel like, the morning really sets the tone for your day.
Mhm.
And if you can win your morning, you can win your day. And
Mhm.
when I do well, and I feel it, because when I do well in the morning, when I do my routine the way I want to do it, um,
Mhm.
my day goes great. I'm moving, I'm shaking, I have a lot of energy, I'm vibrating.
Mhm.
On the flip side, when I don't hit my morning routine, I feel like it takes me like a half day just to catch up with
Yeah.
myself and just to get
Mhm.
get back in my body. So I definitely feel that. Tell us about the journal. Tell us about the journal, please.
Yes. So the wellness workbook and planner, as we talked about the dimensions of wellness, the workbook portion of it includes a breakdown of what those dimensions are, and then an assessment to see where you are in each of those dimensions. From there, we go into identifying your safety net. So the resources that you have in your life that help you, and it breaks down, when you need to laugh, when you need to feel grounded, when you need to feel accepted, that you identify what those are or who they are as you go into this journey. It is a quarterly planner because the idea is that, it's easier if you're going to start incorporating do you hear New York, New Yorking? There's like
No,
four
no,
people
I
there in
don't.
their corner.
I don't hear
Okay.
it, and I don't miss it either. So,
But it is a quarterly planner. So there are three undated calendars and monthly spreads. And then there are daily spreads that allow you to identify what care looks like. Each week has a journaling portion where you just get a brain dump. You start get all your thoughts out. There's a section to organize whatever you need to. And then from there, you have your daily spreads to like a typical planner, if you, however you want to break down your day, but there's also a portion at the bottom where you identify what care looks like based on the kind of day that you're having. The unique part about the spread is that you assess like the cost of your day. Um, and that was really interesting to me because I'm like, again, if we're going to be intentional about care, how do we evaluate the cost of your day? And the day you break that down by stress, energy, and time. And so when I worked a really high stress job, for example, if I had a meeting with somebody that was particularly frustrating to work with, that would be an example where the day didn't cost a lot in time. The meeting was an hour, right? Everything else was kind of like light work. But it cost a lot in stress and energy
mm,
because I knew this particular meeting was going to be just either tense or was going to just drain the life out of me. And so I knew that the care for that day needed to solve for the stress and energy. And so I needed to do things that helped me either relieve stress, calm my nervous system, or re-energize me. And so again, how do we be more intentional with the ways that we apply our care? And then at the end of each week, you can kind of do a brief assessment. These are not long assessments, um, and just seeing kind of what's working and what's not. And the idea is that by the end of the quarter, you've solved for, or you've gotten curious about and refilled your toolbox with things that you know are going to address certain needs, right? So if you know you're thriving in your financial wellness, you've got a job that provides you a lot of security and stability, and you enjoy it. So your occupational wealth is high, your financial wellness is high, you save your money, you budget, you're thriving. But you're still feeling a little off. And it's like, well, because you moved across the country and you're not around your friends and family. And so, what are the things that you can do to pour into that kind of care, be it reconnecting with those people, making the time for that? Um, or how do you build community where you are? And so, maybe your practice throughout the week is figuring that out, right? Is making time for that. That's joining a book club or going out to eat at a new restaurant in your new town, however that looks. And the goal is that for people, especially who are, no one's new to self-care. We've been self-caring our way through our life forever.
Right.
Nobody's new to it. Um, Making a conscious effort for it to be intentional is new for a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially for people who are really busy, um, and people who are givers. I usually work with a lot of givers, be it parents, mothers, nurses, people who are in the service industry, people who work in nonprofits, um, people who feel like it is their either purpose in life, or just a big part of who they are, that they are constantly giving. That the idea of finding time has been such a foreign thing, but if they're not already burned out, they are nearing it. And the practices that they have or they have tried are not working. So it's like I'm doing the green juice and I'm trying to do yoga, but I don't really like that. Or Pilates is really expensive and I'm trying it, but it doesn't work. This is a tool to figure out what can work. And again, just a curious approach to how do you enjoy your life a lot more? How do you reconnect to yourself? And a lot of the times in wellness spaces, like every industry, there's like its own language. There's a little bit confusion. There are people that are really ethical, and there are people that are really unethical. And I think that a lot of people get their wellness content from online, which, again, there could be people who have a code of ethics and people who do not. That it can also be very, very, very overwhelming. And the idea of making time for yourself for a lot of people, especially givers who are already exhausted and they're already spent and they already don't have a lot of time. And the idea of making time just sounds like too much. This is a really practical tool to help with that because it's also a planner. So it is a way of organizing your day already. This is a tool that is also a planner is not something that you have to learn. Like it's a tool that's already easily approachable. And there's a lot of space to write. There's a note section in the back. And there are a lot of areas in the workbook where you can just write your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It's also again undated. So there's no pressure. I know personally, again, me and my ADHD-ness, if I start a planner and it is dated and I miss a week, never gonna touch it again. It's messed up now.
It's dead to
It's
me.
not, is that I can't, it's messed up now. Where that is something that I kept in mind with this, where it is undated. So if you miss a week, it is okay. You can just start from wherever you left off and you can just keep going.
So cool. So cool. We'll definitely make sure we include a link to that in the podcast description. Um Eb, it is always a pleasure. It is always a pleasure to see you. It is always a pleasure to talk with you, so wise in your wisdom. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope that this will not, be our last podcast conversation, man. Hopefully there's many more to come.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations again. You're doing great things as always. New
Yes.
York misses you.
And I miss New York. I miss New York. Definitely, for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on here. Thank you to your audience as well.
Definitely. Definitely. All right, y'all. The People's Podcast. We are out. Peace.